What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Young Santa Ho, man. I told y'all we can be reading again. We got mastery. Yes, Zersky. Yes, sir. All right, bro. We gonna put 20 minutes long right now. Hopefully, no one call me, bro. I'm gonna be low key pissed. Someone call me mid read, but we'll see. All right, bet. Let's start. So yesterday we left off on perhaps. Okay, bet. Perhaps the greatest illustration of this would be the discovery of Louis Pasteur of the immunology and how contagious diseases can be prevented by inhalation. Pasteur spent years demonstrating that various diseases are caused by organisms, or germs, a novel concept for the time. In developing for his germ theory, he expanded his knowledge to all different bran- into all different branches of medicine and chemistry. In 1879, he was researching chicken cholera, and he had prepared cultures of this disease. But the cholera work got interrupted by other projects. For several months, the cultures remained untouched in his laboratory. When he returned to the work, he injected the cultures into chicken and was surprised when they all recovered easily from the disease. Figuring these cultures had had lost their virulence. I don't know I don't know how to say that word, y'all. But I'm not gonna lie, this shit's hella big books. I mean, hella big words because of the time factor. He he orders he ordered new varieties, which he injected himself, which he injected which he injected immediately into the same chickens and then into some new ones. The new ones all died as expected, but all the old ones survived. Many doctors in the past had witnessed a similar phenomenon, but had not noticed and had refused to contemplate its meaning. Pasteur had such a wide and deep knowledge of the field that the survival of the chickens instantly caught his attention. In thinking deeply about what it could mean, he realized that he had stumbled upon a whole new practice in medicine: the incarnation of body against disease by injecting small doses of the actual disease. The wideness of his searches and openness the wideness of his searches and the openness of his spirit allowed him to make the connection to random discovery. As Pastor himself commented, chance favors only the prepared mind. I like that. Such serendipitous discoveries are extremely common in science and technology inventions. The list could include, among hundred others, the discovery of William Roentgen of X-rays and Alexander Fleming of penicillin, and the invention of printing press by Gutenberg. Perhaps one of the most illuminating of all such examples occurred with the great inventor Thomas Edison. He had been working long and hard on improving the mechanics of the roll of paper, and as it moved through the telegraph and recorded the various dots and dashes. The work was not going well, and particularly bothered him was the sound machine as what particularly bothered him was the sound the machine made as a paper pastor. It gave off a light musical rhythmical rhythmical sound resembling human talk heard indistinctly. He wanted to get rid of this sound somehow, but over the course of the next few months, as he let go of the work on telegraph, the whirring noise continued to haunt him. One day, as he heard it yet again in his head, an outstanding, an astounding thought occurred to him. He might have inadvertently hit upon a way which records some sound in the human voice. He spent the next few months immersing himself into the science of sound, which led to his first experiments on creating a phonograph that would record the human voice using a very similar technology to telegraph. This discovery shows us to the essence of the creative mind in such a mind. In such a mind, every stimulus that enters the brain is processed, turned over, and reevaluated. Nothing is taken at face value. A wearing sound is never neutral, never merely a sound, but something to interrupt. A possibility, a sign. Dozens of such possibilities lead nowhere, but to an open and fluid mind they are not only worth considering, but a constant pleasure to invest in. perchance itself becomes a stimulating exercise in thinking. One reason that serendipity plays such a large role in discoveries and inventions is that our minds are limited. We cannot explore all avenues and imagine all every possibility. Nobody could have come upon the invention of the photograph in Edison's time by a rational process of imagining rolls of paper that could record sound. Random external stimuli lead to us association we cannot come by our own. Like like seeds floating floating in space, they require the soul of a highly prepared and open mind to take in route and sprout a meaningful idea. Serendipity strategies can be interesting devices in the arts as well. For instance, the writer Anthony Burgess, trying to free his mind from the same stale ideas, decided on a several decided on several occasions to choose random words in a reference book and use them to guide the plot of a novel, according to the order and association of the words. Once he had completely haphazard starting points, his conscious mind took over. He worked them into extremely well crafted novels with surprising structures. The surrealist Art Max turned into something similar in a series of paintings inspired by a deep cruise in a wood floor that had been scrubbed too many times. He laid pieces of a paper rubbed into the lead. Wait, he laid pieces of paper rubbed with black lead on the floor at odd angles and made prints of them. Based on these prints, he proceeded to make surreal and hallucinatory drawings. In these examples, a random idea that was a random idea, or in these examples, a random idea was used to force the mind to create novel associations and to loosen the creative urge. This makes of a complete chance in the constant elaboration often creates novel and exciting effects. To help yourself to cultivate serendipity, you should keep a notebook with you at all times. The moment any idea or observation comes, you note it down. You keep the notebook out by your bed, careful to record that ideas, careful to record ideas that come in those moments of French awareness just before falling to sleep. Just upon waking, in this notebook, you record any scrap of thought that occurs to you, including drawings, quotes from other books, and anything at all. In this way, you will have a freedom. You have the freedom to try out the most absurd ideas. The juxtaposition of many random bits will be enough to spark various associations. In general, you must adopt a more analogical way of thinking, taking greater advantage of the associative powers of the mind. Thinking in terms of analogies and metaphors can be extremely helpful to the creative process. For instance, an argument people used to in the 16th and 17th century to prove that the earth does not move was to say a rock dropped from the tower lands at its base. If the earth was moving, they argued it would fall elsewhere. Galileo, a man who habitually thought in terms of analogy, saw the earth in his mind as a kind of sailing ship in space. As he explains the doubters of the earth's movement, a rock dropped from the mass of a moving ship still lands at its base. These analogies can be tight and illogical, such as Isaac Newton's comparison of the falling apple from a tree in his garden to the moon falling in space. Or they can be loose and somewhat irrational, such as jazz artist Jazz Coltrane thinking of his own composition as cathedrals of the sound was constructing. In any event, you must train yourself to look constantly for such analogy to refine and expand your ideas. Alright, but that was part B. C. This is part C. Alternate the mind through the current. In 1832, as Charles Darwin voyaged through the coastline of South Africa and traveled into the interior, he began to take note of several strange phenomena. Bones of angels long extinct, marine fossils near the top of the mountains from Peru, and animals on islands that were similar and yet quite different, and yet quite different from the mainland counterparts. In his notebooks, he began to speculate on what all could mean. Clearly, the earth appeared to be much older than indicated in the Bible, and became increasingly, increasingly difficult for him to imagine all of life was created at once. Based on these continued speculations, he began to look more closely at the plant and the life and light that he was observing. In in doing so, he took note of even more anomalies, anomalies, anomalies in nature. He tried to find a pattern among them. When he visited Galapagos Island near the end of his voyage, he witnessed so much variety in life, a small area that he finally saw the pattern, the idea of evolution itself. For the next 20 years, Darwin expanded upon the process that he started as a young man. He speculated on a variety within species might within actually occur, and to test out his ideas, he began to keep and breed different types of pigeons. That's not what I expected to hear. The theory of evolution he was developing depended on the movement of plants and animals across wide expanses of the globe. This was easier to imagine with animals than with plants. For instance, how did such a rich vegetation end up on a relatively young volcanic island? Most believed it was from an act of God and Darwin, and so Darwin began a series of experiments soaking various seeds in salt water to see how long they survived, and such an element in still germinate. The results proved they could last longer than he had imagined. Considering ocean currents, he had calculated that had many varieties of seeds could travel more than 1,000 miles in some 40 days and still germinate. As ideas began to solidify, he decided to intensify his search by spending 8 years studying many species of one type of crucian, the barnacle, in order to prove or disprove speculations. This research ended by validating his ideas and adding some new wrinkles. Certain that he had discovered something meaningful after all his work, he had published his results on an evolutionary process that he called natural selection. The theory of evolution, as formulated by Charles Darwin, represents one of the most outstanding achievements of human creative thinking, and is a testament of the powers of the mind. Evolution is not something that can be seen with the eyes. It depends on a powerful use of imagination. To imagine what could happen on the earth is in the course of millions upon millions of years, a period of time that is so outstandingly long. We have no way of really concept, conceptualizing it. It also required the ability to imagine a process that could occur on its own. Without the guidance of a spiritual force, Darwin's theory could only have reduced by looking at evidence and making connections in the mind about what his finding could mean. In his theory of evolution, devised in this way, has stood the test of time and has come to have profound ramifications on all forms of science. Through the mental process that we shall call the current, Charles Darwin made the visual made Charles Darwin made visible to us all what is completely invisible to the human eye. The current is like a mental electrical charge that gains its power through constant alternation. The We observe something in the world that strikes our attention and makes us wonder what it means. In thinking about it, we devise several possible explanations. When we look at the phenomenon again, we see it differently. As we cycle through the various ideas we had imagined to account for it, perhaps we conduct experiments to verify or alter our speculations. Now, when we look at the phenomenon yet again, weeks or months later, we see more aspects of the hidden reality. If we had failed to speculate on the meaning of what we had observed, we simply would have to have an observation that lead us nowhere. If we had speculated without continuing to observe and verify, then we would have say the same random floating ideas in our head. But by continually cycling through between speculation and observation, we are able to pierce deeper and deeper into reality, like a drill, and that penetrates a piece of wood through its motion. The current is a constant dialogue between our thoughts and reality. If we go into the process deeply enough, we come into contact with a theory that explains far beyond the capability of our limited senses. Woo! I'm feeling good right now. I got 5 minutes left, y'all. That hold on, babe. Hold on, babe. All right, bet. The current is merely an intensification of the most elementary powers of the human consciousness. Our most primitive ancestors would take note of something unusual or out of place, broken twigs, chewed leaves, the outline of a hoof or a paw. Through an act of pure imagination, they would deduce that what is meant is an animal had been passed by. The fact this fact would be verified by tracking the footprints. Through this process, what was immediately visible to the eyes became visible. Or what was not immediately became visible to the eyes became visible. All that was occurred since then all that has occurred since then is an elaboration of this power increasingly higher level of abstraction. To the point of understanding hidden laws of nature like evolution and relativity. Relativity. Most often in culture, we see people who short circuit the current. They they observe some phenomenon in culture or nature that makes them emotional that run rampant with speculations, never taking the time to entertain or possible explanations that could have been verified by further observation. They disconnect themselves from reality and can then imagine whatever they want. On the other hand, we see people, particularly in academia or in science, who accumulate mountains of information dated from study and statistics, but never venture to speculate on the large ramifications of this information are connected to a theory. They are afraid to speculate because it means it seems unscientific and subjective. Failing to understand that speculation is the heart and soul of the human, rationally, our way of connecting to reality and seeing the visible. To them, it is better to stick to facts and studying to keep a micro view rather than possibly embarrassing themselves in speculation that could be wrong. Ooh, okay, bet. Sometimes this fear of speculation microgrades as skepticism. We see this in people who delight in shooting down any theory or explanation before it gets anywhere. They're trying to pass off skepticism as a sign of high intelligence, but in fact, they are taking the easy route. It is quite simple to find arguments against any idea and knock it down from the sidelines. Instead, you must follow the route of all creative thinkers and go in the opposite direction. You then seen, you then not only speculate but are bold audacious with your ideas, all of which force you to work hard to confirm and disconfirm your theories, piercing into reality into the process. As a great scientist, as a great physicist, Max Planck put it, science must have a vivid intuition. Imagination for new ideas are not generated by deduction, but artistically creative imagination. Okay, bet. The current has applications far beyond science. The great inventor Bud Minister Fuller was constantly coming with ideas of possible inventions and new forms of technology, but are afraid to put them into action in any form. They prefer to engage in discussion or critiques, writing about their fantasies, but never playing them to the real world. Never playing them to the real world to set themselves apart. And so apart from these dreamers, he created a strategy of foraging what he called artifacts. Fuck. Working off his ideas, which were sometimes quite wild, he would he would make models of things he imagined, and it seemed all feasible. And he would proceed to invent prototypes of them by actually translating his ideas into tangible objects. He could gain a sense of whether they are potentially interesting or merely ridiculous. Now his seemingly outlandish ideas were no longer speculations but reality. He would then take his prototypes another level, constructing artifacts for the public to see how they were the one to respond. One artifact he made was the Maxon card, which was unveiled at the public in 1993. It was meant to be more efficient and maneuverable and aerodynamic than any vehicle in existence, featuring these three wheels in unusual teardrop shape. In addition, it could be quickly and cheaply assembled. In making his artifact public, he realized several flaws in its design. And hold on, I'm gonna finish this paragraph. Although it led nowhere, particularly as the auto industry put all kinds of roadblocks before him, the the car ended up influencing future designers and caused many questions the single-minded approach people had to design of the automobile. Ford will expand this artifact to all of his ideas, including the most geomistic dome. Okay, what I read from that today is he like have like a mind that like wants you like to open. You feel me? Like you want to have you don't want to have like a closed off mind type shit. That's what I pretty much read from that. You feel me? But my head, I'm not gonna lie, low key hit a blaze earlier and still on my mind. Hold on, got a Hinge notification. Got a Hinge notification, y'all. Oh shit, bad bitches matched me. Hey. But I'm about to post this video, and I got the video for today. About to be posted for today, tomorrow. I'll see y'all. Stay blessed. Stay true. I love y'all boys.